Hey everyone, I'm Ainsley Moyer, and today I'm here with Deb Mazzaferro. Hey Deb.
Hi, good morning.
Welcome. Deb, you are a growth coach and consultant for the specialty food trade, and you really provide a lot of value for people that you're working with from both a sales and marketing perspective, and you really hone in on driving revenue for people. So I'm really excited you're going to be sharing today with us some of those, insights into how people can really grow their sales by looking at some ways that maybe they haven't looked at before and kind of providing some clarity around that for people.
Okay.
So a lot of what we're going to be talking about is about distributors and wholesalers and kind of when to use them and how to use them. But first I wanted to ask, when do you think the right time is for a company to use only their inside sales team versus starting to look at using a distributor or a wholesaler or maybe a blended approach?
Yeah, so I don't think that it's an either or situation. So when you first start, as an entrepreneur with zero sales and you go out and knock on doors, you're sort of doing everything, right? You're doing the manufacturing, the sales, the invoicing, and then the delivery. And as you grow, that's not a sustainable or scalable model. If you have the resources to start off the bat with being a true CEO, and you can outsource a lot the logistics and the delivery and the whatever, hire an invoicing bookkeeping kind of person, then day one you should be aligning yourself with distributors, and I'll explain why. You as an individual can only knock on so many doors. The distributor, each distributor has thousands of customers. So if you can just close with their help or with your broker's help, we'll get into what a broker does, just one major account for that distributor, they'll add you to their warehouse. So now you can ship pallets to them much more efficiently, and they can resell it for you. And I use the term resell loosely because you have to be intimately involved in the sales process. They're not really going to say, oh, great, we have a new item amongst our 10,000 items, and I'm going to go push it. So you really have to, you can never abdicate the sales function.
Right.
Right? So I love when people can do it right off the bat. If they've already started with the other model, going out individually selling stores, at some point those stores are going to say, would be like Whole Foods, for example. Whole Foods has had a very good local program, and you could get into your 4 or 5 or 10 stores locally. But then when you want to be in that region of 40 stores, you just can't cover them all individually, and they're going to say, look, it's time for us to open up the distributor, and then that ultimately opens up your product to all the other stores that the distributor sells to. And so that's why you want a distributor.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. If you want to grow, you almost need it unless you're willing to fully invest in your own team. But even that is still not.
No, it's not. A lot of distributors won't, or I'm sorry, a lot of retailers won't buy direct. So when I just had this conversation with a customer yesterday, a client of mine yesterday, because we were talking about which shows to do. And I said, well, don't waste your time doing any shows if you're not going to accept that that retailer is going to say, we'll put it through such and such a distributor.
Right.
Safeway, Albertsons, Publix, all these big stores now are carrying more and more specialty, natural, and organic products, but they're not going to take, a delivery in the back door. And a lot of small stores too, independents, prefer to buy through their distributor. The best way for them to get the best deal and the just-in-time inventory is to have the person who's delivering it to them on a weekly basis be able to bring one case with the other 50 cases they ordered for the rest of the store.
Right, right. And that's a really important piece to keep in mind, where it's like, it's always trying to make things work for your business, but also your partner. So if you can make it easier for your retailers, they're going to want to take you. It makes sense. They're getting a truckload with all these different products. You're putting yourself in their shoes. Why wouldn't you want that, right?
Right. And quite frankly, they, for their time and energy, they don't want multiple, what we call DSD, direct store deliveries, coming in the back door that they have to trace. First, they have to order it individually. Then they have to receive it individually. Then they have to keep track of it and put it out. And then they have to pay you. And all of those things are bundled together when you work with a distributor.
Right, right. And now there's brokers as well. So what's the difference between a broker and a distributor?
Right. So a broker is actually your independent sales rep or rep organization. The distributor is your customer. So you're going to actually invoice the distributor and they're going to pay you for the product. The broker never touches the product and never gets invoiced. When the distributor gets invoiced, the broker gets a commission, usually 5% on distributor sales. On direct sales, they might make as much as 15%. On really humongous deals that they might put together, where you have to give more of your profit away, they might get a 3% deal. So Costco brokers typically get like 3%. And there wouldn't be a broker involved or a distributor involved, but there very well could be a broker holding your hand through that process. You bill Costco directly, they pay you, and when you get paid, then minus any costs, additional expenses for demos or advertising or whatever you agreed to, you would then pay the broker 3% of that sale, but not until you've been paid. You don't want to dish out the money and then not have, but everything buttoned up. Oh, they took this deduction and I need your help, Mr. Broker, to help me straighten this out because they're your customer. But yeah, again, if you're a newbie in the industry and you don't have those relationships, the broker has a relationship that usually he can get the door open.
Gotcha. And that's a really great way to look at it. It's like relationship is so important that if you can fast track your success by aligning yourself with someone who already has those relationships, then you're doing your business a huge service.
That's right.
And then how easy is it to get connected and working with a distributor? How do you approach them? Where do you find them? And how do you increase your success of having them say, yes, I want to, carry your product, and a broker to say, yes, I want to, help push your product?
Right. So most people go to a trade show, Expo East or West, or the Fancy Food Show in New York or San Francisco, and they exhibit. It's kind of the typical way to do it. And, Whole Foods comes by, or, Harris Teeter comes by, one of the biggies, and says, we're really interested, tell me about your product, tell me about your promotional activity, what can you do to help us move your product? And if they like what they hear, and it's not just about the product, you have to be willing to support your product. If they like what you hear, they say, okay, we're going to send our distributor rep by. So that's one way. Another way I mentioned earlier is you already get into a few stores on a local program, and then they want to elevate you into a bigger distribution, and so you need to go with a distributor. Another way would be to contact someone like myself who's in the industry who can provide some guidance and a list. So I have lists of brokers, lists of distributors, and as a consultant, we work together on crafting your message and how to approach and all of that. That's a third way. Another way would be to go to try LinkedIn and look up specialty food brokers and find a broker that way and connect with people who might be interested in taking your product. Now, remembering again, when you're very new, we call it pioneering, and the broker, right, only makes money if he sells something, and so sometimes there's a 6-month lead before he actually gets a sale with a distributor. So he or she may request a retainer. Retainers can go anywhere from $200 a month to $5,000 a month, depending on the size of the organization and how powerful they are. And there's a few brokers that will do it without a retainer and as a partnership. They see a real value.
Yeah. Okay, that's really, really helpful for people. So definitely make sure that you guys are going to trade shows. It's a great way to get connected with the right people, right?
Well, it's very expensive, and I wrote a book on trade shows. So, and we're making a very special offer. If you go on my website, right, it's $97 for the trade show book. It's an ebook with all kinds of questions and answers to get you through making the decision on the right trade show to do. But they're very expensive, and so you want to make sure that you pick the right one and that you go with the idea of closing sales. And so there's a lot of guidance there on how to do it. But we're running that as a special for people who have bought this program or watching it free for the first 10 days. For $19.99. So it's a real great value.
Yeah. And thank you for that. That is going to be so valuable for everyone. So thank you for your generosity there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure.
And then what else should people be looking for as they are, evaluating potential partners to work with as, brokers or distributors? I would imagine it's a relationship. So there's some pieces that you want to kind of filter out, but any guidance you can share on there?
Well, the main thing with distributors, brokers, we have contracts with brokers typically, and they're very simplistic. It might be long and wordy, but it's basically, we're going to work together as long as we like each other. And, there's a 30 or 60-day out clause. It's pretty straightforward. I would recommend in picking a broker that they actually call on the stores you want to call on. Don't just get excited because the broker says, I'm interested in representing you. I mean, really, there's just interviews and interview questions. And it's not an inquisition, but you want to make sure they're a good fit.
Right.
And the same thing with a distributor. So does that broker call on that distributor? Because if they don't have the relationship, as we mentioned, they're not likely to develop it just for you. So you want somebody who can open the doors at both the distributors and the retailers that you pick, that you want to be in. That takes a little work, market research on your part, not to just say yes to everybody. Distributors have a very complicated set of criteria that's in their contract. And this is where I find most people trip themselves up, is they sign it and don't pay attention to the fine print. And some of the things that you want to look out for are guaranteed sales. So if your product doesn't sell in 6 months, they'll say, well, you have to take it back. And if they have that clause, which most of them do, they're not going to pay you for 6 months, because how are they going to get their money back from you if they've paid the invoice? So very simple, workaround on that is to make sure that they only take a small order at the beginning. Don't let them, and this, you see this more with imported products where, it's a whole container or a lot, only let them take 1 pallet, not 5 pallets, right? If you're small, 5 pallets puts pressure on your business anyway, and on your cash flow and on your productivity, and you're waiting for that money for 6 months. If you just sell them 1 pallet and they work through that in 30 or 60 days and they give you a reorder, then you can come back and say, okay, you obviously sold the first order, so you should pay me now, not in 6 months.
Right. Gives you a little bit more leverage. Make sure that you're not tied up from a cash flow perspective, right?
Perfect. Yep.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any other tips that you can share with people in terms of leveraging partners to grow the sale of their business?
So you're going to want a national sales manager. This is a big, big investment, but that person will also have, higher level contacts within the industry. They'll be able to build a broker organization faster for you. They'll be able to negotiate, at retail and close more deals for you. So that's something that when I help young companies build their business plan, they're like, what do I need a sales manager for? They think if I just make this wonderful product, everything else is going to fall into place.
Right.
And the reality hits later that, oh, this is a lot harder than I thought.
Yeah.
I have a newish client this year. They launched this year and we started in April. And this is common. They've had production problems with their co-packer. They had a recall, because the product wasn't made correctly. It wasn't going bad, but they elected not to have that inferior product they got hit with a fee from the distributor as well as the retailer, and the distributor is going to charge them back at the wholesale price they sold it to, that, which is about 25% more than they paid for it. So they're really upside down in a really bad place. So I would be careful about, really testing your product with your co-packer and sending it to an outside lab, and they'll do an accelerated shelf life test. So they can, within about 5 weeks, they can tell you, how's this going to be in 9 months or a year?
Right.
And it's not inexpensive, but, for the heartache, $1,500 or something like that is well worth the investment. So really making sure your product's ready for prime time, and then, taking the amount of business that you can support. If you open a distributor in the Northeast and one in California, and then you're trying to support both of them with demos and promotions and whatever, you really have to know what you're doing.
Right.
So staying regional too is probably a good advice for startups, for smaller companies.
Right. Yeah. And only grow when you're ready. And I really like that advice. I think a lot of people think that they need to be everywhere all the time. And I love the fact that you're kind of like, stay regional for now and really master that and own that, and then take those learnings and go and apply it elsewhere. You have some traction. You probably got some of those kinks worked out. And yeah, it'll be a smoother sale. There'll be new challenges, I'm sure, but a smoother sale.
Yeah, there's a book I like to recommend. It's the story of Bob's Red Mill. I think it's called People First. And it talks about his journey. I mean, we all know Bob's Red Mill now, but the journey's been going on for 40 years.
Wow.
It's not like an overnight success. And
right.
He had the building burned down, and all kinds of things happened to him. And it's a really lovely, lovely story. And I really suggest to people that they read that. Instead, they think of, big brands that are big today. But if you go back and Google them, I'm not going to mention any names, but if you Google some of these big companies that have been absorbed by, Hershey's and, Procter and Gamble and all of that, they were around 15 years before the company was bought. I mean, it's not like, oh, I started it and in 3 years I was absorbed by, made $82 million. It's just doesn't work like that.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing that, because I think sometimes there's this fallacy that, I've been doing this for 3 years. Why hasn't no one bought me? It must not be successful. I'm closing shop. And it's like, it's a process, and it takes time, and you're going to get better every year when you're going to get new learnings. But if you have a great product that people love, that's great. And if the sales are there and you can take it on, keep at it and keep growing it. because the world needs your product if it's a great tasting one, and it offers people a lot of great pieces. So thank
Yeah,
you.
when people develop their product, they should keep in mind how often someone's going to use it.
Mm-hmm.
So, a bottle of olive oil, you don't use it all in a week, right? Whereas a Red Bull, you drink it and you need another one.
Yeah.
So thinking in terms of creating a product that's going to be high, what we call turnover, high usage, and, it's not just I want it, but I need it.
Right.
Those two things, I think.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Well, this has been such a wealth of information. Thank you so much. I'm going to put links to where people can find you and get that amazing book that you offered. But if you want to share real quick where people can find you, what's the website where they can connect with you?
Yeah, so I go by Coach Maz, M-A-Z. And so Deb at coachmaz.com.
Great.
And coachmaz.com will work. And then growingyourspecialtyfoodbusiness.com also, they lead to the same place.
Well, thank you so much, and look forward to people taking this information and helping them grow their business. So thanks, Coach Maz.
Thank you.